A word of warning, this podcast explores graphic and disturbing stories and includes some strong language. It therefore may not be suitable for our young listeners or other folks who may find it disturbing. Hello and welcome to True Crime News, the podcast covering high-profile and under-the-radar cases from across the country every week. I'm your host, Anna Garcia. Our case this week, the serial killer dubbed the Twitter Killer has been executed for the murders of 9 people. His victims, mostly young women between the ages of 15 and 26. Police say that he mined Twitter for victims who were vulnerable, lured them to his apartment where he sexually assaulted them, then strangled his victims, chopped them up. He stored some body parts in coolers around his apartment, and then he dumped the rest in the trash. We are recording this on Monday, July 7th of 2025. Our guest today is Gisela K., a YouTuber and host of the Grizzly True Crime channel on YouTube. Gisela, thank you. Welcome. We're so happy that you hopped over a couple of channels to join us today. We're so happy to have you. How are you?
I am doing great, thank you. This is such an honor. You are, I'll say it publicly now, I've said it to people behind the scenes, you are such a mentor to me. So I'm truly honored and grateful to be here.
Wow, I'm totally blown away. Now, of course, I have revealed my true self. You all should know I am way behind schedule today. My computer wasn't charged. I couldn't sign on. I thought this was going to be a disaster. So you've seen the less professional, slacky side of me there. I've been on vacation.
Mentor.
On vacation for 2 weeks. My brain is mush. Welcome, everyone. Oh, and I want to say thank you to Luis Bolaños and Josh Ritter for sitting in for me so I could have a little of this time away. And look at me. I'm no more rested or together than I was when you last saw me. All right, let's get to our case today. You know, sometimes we look at international cases for a lot of reasons, and this one really struck me. This is a case out of Japan, and it is a serial killer who has been put to death by the manner of hanging. Convicted of killing 9 people in his apartment outside Tokyo, he showed no remorse, which, you know, to me, Gisela, is the part where we see the most of, I think, the evil in the actions, but then the lack of remorse, and him basically saying, hey, can you just give me life in prison? Because I heard that hanging is really brutal and I don't want to go through that. Can you imagine saying that to the judge?
Can you imagine saying that when you hung your victims as well, on top of everything, and the victims' families are there, and you're just like, I don't want to experience pain, so I'm not sure if I want to be sentenced to death over here. I mean, he's so cold. That's just an understatement from everything about this case.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very cold. The serial killer here, 34-year-old Takahiro Shiraishi. He was given the death penalty and he was hanged nearly 2 weeks ago on June 27th. He was sentenced to death in 2020 after pleading guilty to killing the 9 people. His targets, these young, vulnerable women between the ages of 15 and 26. He did kill one man, but that's because this man came looking for his friend. And so the killer obviously wanted to protect what he was doing. So he killed him too. But otherwise, all his targets were women. The killings took place really in a 3-month period from August to October in 2017. What is so troubling for me is that 3 of the victims were high school students.
With big dreams. I mean, one dreamt of becoming like a manga illustrator and had just finished something at high school. And yeah, these teenagers, I mean, he had a bit of a pattern of that in the past, not the killing, just exploiting vulnerable women, including teens. But this was next level. And the way that he lured them, which I'm sure we're going to discuss in detail, it's really unthinkable. This is the type of killer that makes me so mad because they're also pretending, you know, to be empathetic. I can help you. Come here. And then all these vulnerable teens and young women go to him looking for help, and just think about what happened to them.
Yes. Young people with amazing dreams, but suffering. Everyone shared a terrible vulnerability. 3 of the victims were in high school, a 17-year-old senior who disappeared after a school sports event, the youngest victim being a 15-year-old freshman in high school. Another victim, a 26-year-old mother who left work early that day to meet the killer. And in typical serial killer fashion, he kept some items of the victims. And I'm talking beyond the body parts here. How did he find his victims? On Twitter. He looked for women who were vulnerable, who had expressed they did not want to live anymore. So his Twitter handle could not have been more spot on for the level of criminal that he revealed himself to be, especially now that we know everything about him. The translation would be the hanging pro, and rather fitting since he himself was hanged. Also, the picture that he used as a profile was a Japanese cartoon, a manga, and it depicted a young man who had cut marks across his throat, cut marks on his wrists. He opened the account about 1 month before the murders, posting that he wanted to spread his knowledge of hanging and to help those in pain, meaning he was seeking out people who didn't want to live anymore, and he wanted to help them, in his words, help them achieve their goal of terminating their lives. What is wrong with this man?
Yeah, and apparently he said this to his parents too. He would have like his laptop open and show all these dark thoughts, and he said, eventually he confessed, I just did that because they gave me more pocket money. He like felt sorry for me and gave me more money. So he never actually felt those feelings himself. He literally was just a predator going after these vulnerable, despondent victims, saying, let's make a pact. Let's do this together so that you don't have to go alone. I'll be with you. Or, because he had multiple accounts. Some of the accounts he'd say, let's do it together, and he'd empathize with them. And other accounts he says, if you want help, just DM me. Suspension is the best way. I mean, it's really quite dark, but Japan's culture, unfortunately, it's got a high rate, unfortunately. So it wasn't a huge red flag on social media initially. Of course, rules have now changed. People have become more aware of this. But at the time, he actually got away with a lot on social media, expressing those types of thoughts and connecting with people who were doing that as well.
Yeah, and that was even part of his defense, ultimately. He basically said, well, you know what? This is what they wanted. And so I did what they wanted. They fulfilled their needs or desires. Therefore, it was consensual. Now, that's an interesting use of the word consensual or application of it, because they had shown these thoughts and shared them. This is very dark. It's all very, very dark. And what is so troubling for me is his callousness and their serious need for help. Truly vulnerable women. It really upsets me. He would set up an initial meetup to make sure that the target was right for him, including that they had some money, because the prosecutor said that the motivation was money and also to satisfy this sexual deviant need of his. So he would steal their money so he could pay his rent. One of his victims apparently lived with him for like a week, and she gave him money that he needed. And then when she wanted the money back, that's when he supposedly killed her. It's very, very twisted here, very twisted. Police say that the killings began as soon as Takahiro moved into his Zama Studio apartment. This would have been in August of 2017. Police found the remains of his victims in coolers all over the apartment, and they used DNA technology to confirm the identities. Police say that he dismembered the bodies in the bathroom, and then he discarded many of the body parts, but he kept some. What do you make of this?
Oh man, when I first deep dived this case, I was like, this is a Japanese Jeffrey Dahmer. Mm-hmm. But this is saying a lot. He's almost worse because he wasn't working at the time. He wasn't like compartmentalizing his life. He told his father, I don't really know why I'm alive. And then he just decided, well, this is thrilling. This is what I'm going to do. And the way he lured everyone in, he said that they wanted to do this, like he talked about the consent. And apparently just think about the body parts that you just mentioned in the cooler boxes and storage boxes in this tiny apartment, which was 150 square foot, which for those like me who want to know square meters, it's 14 square meters. It's a really tiny apartment.
It's a
with
closet.
9 people, yeah, that he killed in there. Can you imagine the smell? But they said from the evidence, they also saw that most of the victims, which that must be horrifying to analyze this, had defensive wounds. They didn't want to go through with whatever the plan was. But man, the way that he lured them there by saying, okay, you're going to meet me at a train station. You're going to follow me, but make sure no one notices that you're actually following me. Throw your phone away. Okay, they follow me to the apartment and then I'm going to help you. I mean, it's like, you can't imagine that someone like this actually existed in society.
And he made sure to tell them and instruct them, don't tell your friends, don't tell your families what you're thinking, what you're going to do, that you're going to meet with me, because that way no one would be suspicious or perhaps be checking in a little bit more frequently if you knew that someone was in need of help. So very diabolical. Apparently they found 2 heads of the victims. Everything else was body parts except for the 2 heads. And police said that he used kitty litter to help with odor control. Neighbors said they did smell something like, they called it sewage, but nobody called the authorities, or let's say, I don't know, the electric company, the water company, anything like that. No one made a report. So once they heard what had happened in that apartment, then they all went, oh, But it was a little too late then. Little too late. I've never done a lot of cases, hundreds of cases I've covered. Kitty litter for the tamping down of odor is the first time. This is the first case I've heard of that.
I've heard of it. I just can't remember which case, but sometimes killers will do that. He also tried bleach and he tried bath salts. Apparently body parts were floating in the bathtub. That sounds so scary. I'd also read conflicting reports that they said they might have found more heads in the apartment. And just think how quickly it happened. I think the first murder was around August 22nd. So he actually committed 1 per week because he was arrested on Halloween in 2017. So 1 per week. Can you imagine if he wasn't caught? I mean, what was the plan? Was he going to just like the whole tiny closet apartment be covered in body parts or what?
Yeah, it is interesting. Everyone always wonders how serial killers are found and stopped, and sometimes they go on for years. His killing calendar was a short one, but clearly very deadly because of 9 victims in a very short period of time.
What does retirement look like? To me, probably what you're dreaming of. A carefree, fun retirement with no worry that I have enough money. I mean, right? That's what we worry about when it comes to retirement. Will we have enough money? Well, today's podcast is sponsored by Acorns. Acorns is a financial wellness app that makes it easy to start investing for your retirement, because the sooner you start, the more of a chance your money has to grow. You don't need to be an expert. Acorns recommends a diversified IRA portfolio that can help you weather all of the market's ups and downs. You don't need to be rich. Acorns lets you get started with the money that you've got right now. You'd be surprised at what just $5 a day could do. Plus, sign up for Acorns Gold and you'll get a 3% IRA match on new contributions in your first year. That's extra money for your retirement on Acorns. Investing can seem overwhelming or complicated, but Acorns makes it easy. Even if you start small, Acorns can help you get a plan in place to set yourself up for the future. Sign up now and join the over 1 million all-time customers who have already saved and invested over $2.2 billion for their retirement with Acorns. Head to acorns.com/truecrime or download the Acorns app to get started. Paid non-client endorsement compensation provides incentive to positively promote Acorns. Tier 1 compensation provided. Investing involves risk. Acorns Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. View important disclosures at acorns.com/truecrime.
So, as we said, his very first victim, I think you mentioned this, was a 21-year-old woman. This would have been in August of 2017. And she's the one where he wasn't sure if he was going to kill her initially because he was taking the money from her, and then ultimately he did. The theory is that first one was kind of like the run through where he figured everything out. He even told authorities, it took me, the first one, it took me days to dismember the body. But by the time, he had gotten to victim 2 and 3, he had it down to a day. It's like sharing your level of efficiency in the most demonic way.
Yeah, from 3 days down to 2 hours. It's like he's proud of it. I think he was actually bragging a little bit. Just like, yeah, initially 3 days, which is actually, that's a long time to be doing the most sinister thing. Imagine actually being a fly on that wall. It must be so, so, so scary. But then the next victim, the next one week, one per week, and then suddenly he's got it down to 2 hours. That's what I say. Where was this headed if he wasn't caught? And hopefully people learn from this. If you smell something funny like that, rather just call someone to check it out.
Absolutely. Just say raw sewage, because anytime the authorities believe that there's raw sewage, it's when they truly run, and they do investigate. It's very important. So how was he stopped? How was he found out? Because it kind of seemed it was fairly seamless. Well, the brother of a 23-year-old victim reported his sister missing. And the brother was worried because she expressed a desire to end her life. So the brother searched through all her social media accounts, found a message from Takahiro's account that said, "Let's die together." Security cameras across the city were able to pick up his movements, as you said, meeting at the train station, walking, his apartment, and that gave us a digital footprint from available public cameras. So, inside the apartment, as we said, the coolers were actually, and I know it's a really tiny place, but it was even in the entryway because he ran out of space for his victims. Just horrific. That he utilized a saw that police say they found that was used to cut the limbs in the bathroom. I don't want to get into a lot of gruesome detail, but it's important to understand how this maybe is happening inside your apartment, but it's not like people around him weren't noticing that there was something really bizarre going on.
Yeah, what about the noise, the smell, seeing people going in there with him every week, somebody new, not coming out? I don't know. Maybe they just didn't see that, or obviously the culture is very private. You just don't be nosy, but still to think now in hindsight what was going on in that apartment. You know what's so shocking is that somebody's actually renting it now. Somebody after that said, well, it's a great price. It's a great size apartment, great price. I'm going to take it. Wow.
Yeah, I don't. And of course, it's in Tokyo, in Japan, especially the Tokyo area, is very dense, and there aren't a lot of rentals. But I would just think that's too soon, and it's got too much bad, evil energy, right? That's just really bad energy. I don't know. And I don't think saging is enough for this. Not in this case. So a little bit more about the killer. So what was going on in his world? Who was this man? Seems to have had a fairly normal upbringing. Apparently had a close relationship with his father, who worked as an automobile parts designer. Now, his mother and his sister did not live with them because the sister went to a school far away, so the mother and the sister lived elsewhere. After finishing school, kind of didn't really have a direction at all. He worked odd jobs, grocery store. Then he was recruited as a scout for enticing women into sex parlors. Okay. You don't necessarily have to be a deviant to be in this business by any means. For some people, business is just business. He was arrested in February 2017, the year of the murders, for recruiting a woman into a sex shop that he knew that she would then be a sex worker, and he was given a suspended jail sentence. So the thing is, it's his ability to manipulate women. This is the part I can't figure out, because usually with serial killers, there's, not all, but many, there's a charm. They are disarming. What do you think about him?
That's a very good question. I was wondering as well with his background, with his mother and sister moving away to be close to the sister school, how often he saw them, or if that, I always think about the psychology. Did that cause any resentment in him growing up with no female figures around? I don't know. But to be a scout for sex parlors and be labeled by other scouts and people in that seedy neighborhood as someone really shady, people were like, watch out for that scout. Ooh, that says something. So I don't know what was it that yeah, exactly. I don't feel like he had charm, and yet he said that he got women to buy him clothes and cover his expenses. And that's why one of his motives, even with a serial killing, because that's what it escalated to, was financial. It was financial and sexual. And he actually blamed the government, saying, well, you arrested me. And I had this, this parole or whatever it was. And so I couldn't sexually assault anyone anymore. Otherwise, I'd end up in prison. So I had to just kill them. I mean...
Not my kind of logic. Not my kind of logic. It is interesting that he was so revealing in many ways about what he was thinking, what he felt, why he did that. Sometimes serial killers reveal very little, but I always find that if you find the right person to question them, because they think they're in control. And so it's honestly, I've said this before, I really despise the coverage of serial killers for myself as a reporter. There are many cases I find very interesting, but for me, I always get very upset with serial killers because there's a defect and there's something absolutely wrong with them. And so you cannot apply any form of reasoning or logic to try and understand. It is a crime that is so hard for me. It's just really, how can I figure out what's going on when there is a true defect in that brain?
Yeah, and for me, the opposite. That's why I've always been fascinated with it, because I'm like, how do they compartmentalize their lives like this? Some of them continue to work. They work, they've got families. This guy was not quite like that, but they work and they blend in, and then they're committing these absolutely terrible crimes, like of the most graphic kind. And then the sexuality mixed in is always so weird too. And yeah, this case is as shocking as any others that I've ever looked into.
Yeah, very, very gross here. Well, in June of 2017, the year of the murders, his father said, and he would have been 27 at this time, the killer, went into a very deep depression. Okay, that makes sense, that there was something noticeable, something that clicked, changed immediately in his behaviors. By 2018, after his arrest, he was indicted on multiple charges, including murder for robbery and forcible sexual intercourse. Even though he had confessed to the killings, and of course there's a ton of evidence, like the body parts, no getting around that one, the defense really still wanted to have their day in court and to make their arguments to try and avoid the death penalty. The defense, as I said, was extremely simple. The victims participated. It was consensual, except for one, the friend who came looking for his missing friend. Case never went to trial. He entered a guilty plea in September of 2020. He told media outlets, "There is no use in fighting the charges." About the first thing he said that I absolutely can comprehend and agree with.
Yes, I mean, his defense was absolutely insulting to the victims, especially because they said some of the body parts showed there were defensive wounds. There's all these accusations of necrophilia. I mean, what? And he's just like, what? It was consensual. But thankfully, he piped up and said, no, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. I did this. And, eventually the case didn't go to trial like the defense wanted. So he just admitted everything, which again makes me feel like he's a very arrogant, braggy type of killer, which is also weird for Japan because there's a whole culture there of shame. People feel ashamed of things and they want to keep those thoughts to themselves. He's just out here bragging about everything that he did, speaking to authors. I mean...
He is very different that way. He is very, very different. He was given a chance to apologize to the families. And he passed. I got nothing to say. And if he, again, something is absolutely wrong with him, Okay, look, even his apology would mean probably nothing to me. But if he was truly so afraid of the death penalty and was scared of dying and scared of the pain that he would feel, one thing he could have tried to save himself, obviously, if he's so in love with himself, would have been to show some remorse. But he chose not to.
No remorse. He said they asked, do you regret anything? He's like, yeah, maybe the one, because, maybe I could have given her money back. Or I felt sorry for the one that was, I think, going through postpartum depression or something. So maybe, yeah, that, but it was really about the stuff he could get. He wasn't actually remorseful for what he did. It's more about, oh man, I should have kept that going a little longer for financial gain.
Yeah. Oh, this man is just so creepy. Well, not all the victims' families were pleased with his execution, which is interesting. One family told a local news outlet that they would have preferred him spending his life in prison reflecting on the crimes he committed. Frankly, I don't think he has the wiring to be able to do that.
I don't think so either. I must agree with you too. Even if he spent his whole life until an old age there, he'd never reflect. He'd just be bragging and probably talking to more authors. The good thing about the way that they do executions in Japan is it is always by hanging, which in this case is very interesting because he suspended his victims. So he would drug them. He would give them whiskey with tranquilizers and sleeping pills and then suspend them in this loft apartment that he wanted, that he then got. So given that he was going to be hung, that is very interesting. But in Japan, they don't know that the person who's waiting, for that death sentence to be executed, they don't know when it's going to happen. So I think that is enough torment already. And to think that it took, I think, from December 2020 all the way until June of 2025, it might not sound long, but that's many days where he had no idea when it was going to happen.
That's really interesting. I like what you just pointed out. That's really fascinating because that one would think if that was his fear, sorry, but I do hope he was a bit tormented. I'm sorry. I have no compassion for him. Absolutely none. So if that did torment him, the not knowing, okay, there's a little bit of justice in there. I also find it interesting that unlike in the United States, for example, we generally know the execution date. We generally hear of all the appeals, all these details. There are witnesses to the execution. And in Japan, after the execution has happened quietly, privately, then the government announces that it happened. So you have no idea when it's going to happen. I find that very interesting.
Yeah, no one knows, not even the family, and they cremate them normally immediately. And the thing with how they do these executions in Japan as well is they'll tell the person who's going to be executed, okay, it's happening today, everything's been signed, and they take them to a prayer room, then an altar room. Then the last thing they see is these blue curtains. That's it. Then they put a blindfold over them, then a hood. Then they handcuff them, tie their knees together, and in they go. I mean, it really does sound quite terrifying when you go into the details of how they do this. And there's normally 3 officers that will be in a room that can't see the person, and they've each got, a kill switch to press so that they don't know who's doing it. And the guy has to stand, they put him in the middle of a separate room, and then he's hung. I mean, for him, yeah, I think it does feel like justice, especially because he hung his victims.
Yes. And that was his Twitter handle, Hanging Pro. Oh, this was professional indeed. Your end was professional. It's all sounds so medieval, so medieval in the manner in which they execute. It's very, very interesting. I just, this case, again, what troubled me about it is the luring and the exploitation of someone who is hurting in a tremendous amount of pain and needs help. And I can't stand the attack on that vulnerability. I can't stand it.
Yeah, at least it's brought about some change on X, which used to be called Twitter. That's why it's called Japan's Twitter killer. But there's been some change where they don't allow people to promote self-harm anymore. One would think it should have been in place then. But it's definitely in place now, so that hopefully that will happen less. But yes, the fact that he could just I mean, he's sharing cute like puppy and kitty pictures on one of his handles and connecting with people that way who also then had depression and dark thoughts and saying, let's just do this together. I mean, and he wouldn't do it together. Once they get there, he drugs them, he knocks them out, he sexually assaults them, and then suspends them. And then he watched them convulse for 30 minutes. And he got off on that. That is so, oh my goodness, that is such a violation of everything. And to think, yes, some of these victims were 15 years old. I mean, what is wrong with this guy? His mother actually said, but he's a good boy. He wouldn't even hurt an insect. What? Like, luckily they cut all contact with him once he was actually arrested. But to actually say that, knowing there were coolers with heads in it in the apartment, you can't say that.
No, I always find that part of it very fascinating, how family members react. I'm always so impressed with the family members who stand up, the family members of the killers who stand up, who say how horrible it is, and they themselves apologize to the victims' families. And you'll see that sometimes even within families, these things happen. And I always feel like they're the ones who always do the right thing somehow. They acknowledge this is absolutely wrong, and we and our family is so sorry for what has happened to you, but we don't see that very often. And that always bothers me. It's almost like when you stand by the person, especially when there's a mountain of evidence like this, I almost feel as if like, okay, we can understand a mother, a father, they love their child, and what can they do? But the lack of acknowledgement of how horrific and violent and traumatic this killing has been, or killings, I just don't understand that.
No, and that's like enabling. The killer, that's my worst. That's my pet peeve. Like, you're enabling this guy by saying he's a really good boy and wouldn't hurt even an insect. Okay, well, he killed 9 people and dismembered them, all in 9 weeks. So I think he would. That's just something so bizarre to say. And I just can't imagine how the victims' families feel. And imagine the brother who actually cracked the case. The brother of one of the victims going to the social media accounts. And actually, there was another lady involved that he started messaging and that got police to show where his apartment is. That's also amazing. There were some heroes in the story, too, that... Yeah, I mean, by his mother saying that, it just really doesn't acknowledge that at all.
It is time for our comment section. These are the crime cases that you all are talking about on social media. Here's our producer, Will Updike. Hey, Will, how are you?
Hey, Anna, good to see you. Back from vacation.
My God, I am indeed back, and I am no more rested than when I left.
Gisela, great to see you. Thank you for joining us internationally. It's like 8 p.m. where you are?
Yes, thank you so much. It is. It's not too late. This is actually a very decent hour. Thank
great.
you so much.
Yeah, glad we're not going to have you missing sleep, especially after that case. Something a little different in this comment section. I'm calling it a McNuggetless McDonald's trip, which turned a young man into a McNut. This case comes out of Polk County, Florida, where a man is behind bars after allegedly threatening McDonald's because they forgot to include his chicken McNuggets in his order. And this is a pretty common thing. It seems like McNuggets, fries,
and the sauce. People get very upset if they don't get their sauce.
Yeah.
What is it with the sauce? They just lose it.
And that's not happening as much where you're at in Switzerland, I would guess. Is it, Gisela? Are people losing their minds at McDonald's?
Nope. And there's not too many McDonald's around either. So I haven't actually heard of that here in Switzerland, but I have read a lot of stories like that from America. And I'm always fascinated because in the context of the cases we discuss, which are so heavy, these people get more upset about their sauce or a nugget being missing than some killers get upset. They barely even, if you think of Koberger taking his plea deal, I mean, he barely expresses more than, oh, yes, I would like a napkin. Or you forgot this and this, Yeah,
it's interesting the passions behind some of these. This case, like I said, it comes out of Polk County, Florida. A lot of this reporting actually came from a video report from Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd, which if you're like a true crime follower, he always gives like really lively press conferences and stuff. I'll put a link below in the description of this video so you can watch it yourself. He makes a bunch of McDonald's puns. It's a pretty good time. He's a pretty funny guy. But essentially what happened here, our suspect, 18-year-old Dayton Wayne Schaefer, allegedly ordered a $5 meal deal. And when he got his order, it was missing a key element, these chicken McNuggets. Well, it seems like a lot of trouble to get into over a $5 meal deal if what police say here is true. They claim that when Dayton realized his order was McNuggetless, he acted like a McNut, in the words of Sheriff Grady here. So he apparently made multiple calls to this location. This is all unfolded sometime around 1 a.m. in the morning. So very early in the morning there. And in the calls, he's reportedly making threatening statements, using a lot of profanities. But where it kind of allegedly crosses a line here is police say that he threatened to shoot the S up, referring to the McDonald's, using some profanity that I'm not going to repeat here, but you can use your imagination. So the staff takes this pretty seriously. They call the police. They say that they're concerned. They reportedly locked all the doors to the location. They don't really, I don't know what to do. Someone keeps making calls. It seems like it would be pretty serious. And according to police, when they get this information, it was not very difficult to track down their suspect. They claim that Dayton made these threatening phone calls using his own telephone without any attempt to obscure its origin. So he's not using like a Google Voice number or something where you might try to block it, so it's not so easy for law enforcement to track you down. Now, unfortunately for Dayton, it seems that this phone was in his mother's name.
No.
So authorities show up and she allegedly confirmed with them that the phone, yes, that phone number, in fact, did belong to her son, Dayton, and they are later able to track him down at a buddy's house. I'm guessing mom probably gave him the location too. Oh, Dayton's with his friend. Now, according to cops, after he was Mirandized, Dayton allegedly admitted to making the calls. However, deputies said that he claimed that it was a joke. He did not have any intentions of shooting anyone at McDonald's. But like I said, the employees thought this was very serious. The cops took this very seriously. They ultimately charged Dayton here with using a two-way communication device to commit a felony and false report of a bomb or weapon of mass destruction, which who knows, these charges might get knocked down.
Wow, a felony. I was thinking that's interesting.
Yeah. I would guess that this is just sort of, I don't know, like a scared straight, almost like a scared straight type situation where maybe they have him plead out to something lesser, and hopefully, things move forward in a positive way for our customer service workers, and it discourages other people from kind of doing this. I do want to say though, the kicker here is when this whole ordeal began, the manager of the location allegedly got on the phone here with Dayton and offered to replace the nuggets, to give him the nuggets for free if Dayton simply returned to the location. But apparently that proposal was met with a string of profanities, and not cooler heads just did not prevail in this situation, which I'm always impressed when it goes from 0 to 100 in these fast food type scenarios. I'm usually just taking the loss and moving on with my day. I'm taking it as some sort of sign or faith that, maybe I didn't need the extra calories that day. Maybe I'm just good with my little fries and my little burger and my little drink.
That's right. That maybe it would have given you a tummy ache or something. That was my mother's theory on everything. Like, when you couldn't find your keys and so you end up missing something or something happens. And like, even to the degree, like once we had a vacation booked, I was taking my mother, it was a gift, on finally making some money. I wanted to treat my mother to a cruise to Bermuda, and then of course a hurricane hits and the whole thing gets canceled. And my mother's theory on all these things was something far more horrible would have happened. And this was the universe, of course she believed in God, was intervening to save you. This is my mother's theory. So I kind of agree with you.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I like that. It's almost like a divine intervention.
Yes.
Gisela, not to put you on the spot, but is there any fast food in Switzerland that you enjoy? Have you ever been wronged at a drive-thru?
I honestly like cooking at home.
Okay.
We love making food at home. So we've been to a McDonald's, but it's like $20 for a burger. It's like
oh
really
my
expensive in
God.
Well,
Switzerland.
that's wrong. No.
Well, then
like,
you'd be
it's
really curious if they're forgetting it.
Yeah, is it gourmet or what are we talking about here?
Not for $20.
Takeout's really expensive, so no thank you. We'll just cook at home. But yeah, I have never seen such an outburst, but I would love to see that body cam from Dayton. I want to see that and just remind him now if you're in jail, you're not going to be able to order those McNuggets. You should have just gone back and just got them.
Just take the nuggets for free. We got a lot of comments on this one. Pretty Kitty weirdly identified with this. They said, I don't play about my food either, so I understand him. I know we all get shorted. Like I said, sometimes maybe it's a divine intervention, and it just wasn't meant to be that day. Alluring Fire thinks it's got to be something in the food. We do see a lot of these cases at fast food places. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe the sugar content there or something is getting to your head. I'm not really sure.
Or people are just in a hurry. I honestly don't know. I don't know what it is. And it's, you work really hard at these fast food places. Very hard for your money. And to be treated with such disrespect and then to be threatened, to take your life, it's insanity. It's, and I'm sorry, it's not a joke and he knew better. Please give me a break.
Yeah, in my college town, there were only like 3 different drive-throughs, and it like all of them had a pretty strict policy. Like if there was any nonsense going on in the drive-through, like you're not getting your order. Like you're out of here. Like they'll refund you the money or whatever, but like you're out of here. Like you're not going to disrespect the workers. They're here late. They don't need this nonsense. And I always kind of admired that.
That's brilliant. Like a no nonsense policy.
Yeah,
I like this.
If you're cursing, if you're getting belligerent, I'm sorry. Like your fast food isn't happening. You gotta behave yourself. So I always kind of like that. Chris M said this was taking hangry to a whole new level. Which we've been there. We all get there. You just gotta monitor your blood sugar. Maybe get a little snack before the drive-thru. I don't know, a granola bar or something. Who knows? Plant M said don't mess with the nuggets, bro. Just don't. Like I said at the beginning of this, I don't get why it's always nuggets or the fries or the sauce. I don't know. Like it doesn't seem like people are that mad about the burger either. And that's like, isn't that what McDonald's is known for? Isn't that their bread and butter, so to speak?
I don't know. There has to be, we have to talk to some of our criminologist, sociology professors that we have on and see if we can't get to the bottom of what the heck is going on in the United States with people losing it at fast food places.
I've begged Dr. Tracy Tambora, our criminologist friend, to look into this a little bit more. I don't know if there's a lot of interest in this subject, but I am personally very interested. Would love to read some sort of dossier on this. But that is going to do it for this week's comment section. I want to thank everybody who sent those in. You can do that over on our YouTube community page. You can also comment in this video. You can comment on any of our videos. Anna does read your comments. She would love to hear from you. But that'll do it for this week's comment section. Till next time, don't do crime.
So Gisela, before we go, I'm just curious about how crime ended up being such a, of interest to you.
I don't know. It just feels like this is just where I'm supposed to be. It's just what I've always been interested in. My biological father was a police officer, so that might have something to do with it, but I didn't see him all that much, between the age of 5 and 11. So I don't know if that started getting me fascinated with police work and things like that. I just find it amazing how in America, you guys have press conferences, live trials, mugshots, FOIA requests. We don't have that elsewhere in the world. In Switzerland, if a crime is committed, they actually change the name of the perpetrator and they blur out the face of the victim, and we don't know their name half the time either. So it's very, very private. And in South Africa, it was just a little bit, you couldn't get hold of paperwork and things like that. So I feel like just seeing that, and even, we just talked about Sheriff Grady Judd. I mean, he's so amazing and so snarky, and just seeing things like that, it just works so differently. And I guess if you just look at all the documentaries that are made and everything, I think it was just a natural progression for me to get there eventually. Why wouldn't anyone else be interested in this? And we can learn such safety lessons as well. That's what I like it for, is to learn, to say, what can we learn from this case? How can we prevent this from happening to ourselves or others?
Fascinating. Do you think, is it your opinion, is it better or is it worse to have perhaps the level of transparency that we have versus other countries?
I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because I think it's better. I think the transparency is better. The one downside is that some killers then get inspired by, the notoriety, the books being written about them, the movies, the people like Zac Efron portraying them in Netflix series. I think some people unfortunately get inspired by that. So that's one real negative. But on the whole, I think the transparency is amazing. I wish there was more of that elsewhere.
So then, because we are more transparent, does that mean, because you hear more about our cases, it's hard for me to believe, like, for example, today's case was from Japan, that there isn't this level of crime elsewhere. It's just not being covered as much?
That is always a question. People always ask me that as well in my community, like, are the rates that high? But the thing is, they just aren't. Like, the homicide rates in Switzerland are incredibly low, and in Japan as well. So that crime we talked about today was like so shocking. When somebody's committing a crime there, it sounds like it's like all the way up there, you know, like this Takehiro Shiraishi that we spoke about. So I don't know if it has a factor in it. I also think population size has a factor in it. Switzerland's a very small country. South Africa's a third world country, beautiful country though. That's where I'm from. And so I'm not too sure if that has a factor or not, but I love the transparency, and I wish we could see more trials and more cases from all over the world.
Yeah, fascinating. For me, it's always, I look at human nature and how people react to things. And the reason I can't identify with serial killers, not identify, is that they're missing something there. It's a defect, there's a chip, it's something. So I'm never going to comprehend. But in other cases, I always say this over and over again. Murder is not a problem-solving tool. So if you're having your secret's about to be revealed, if your lover is leaving you, if the divorce is costing you financially, how in the world is killing someone and then spending the rest of your life in prison solving your current problem? How is that improving your situation? So for me, it's always about like, how did you arrive at this decision? You had so many opportunities to press pause and say, yeah, no, I'm not going through with this. This is nuts. But they don't. And that, to me, is what I find fascinating.
Yeah, that is amazing how people, it's almost like we need to spell it out for some people. Murder is not an option. It's not a way to solve problems. Some people might actually need to hear that. Maybe they don't know. Because it is amazing how some people, there's so many steps along the way. There's so many times they could back out and they don't. It's really dumb. I mean, did they really think they're not going to get caught?
Yeah, that's the amazing part. I didn't do it. No, you got the wrong person here. Look over there. It's stunning. Gisela, where can people find you, follow you, all of that?
People can find me almost every day on my YouTube channel, which is called Grizzly True Crime, Grizzly like the bear, double Z. They can find me there, or on X at True Crime Gisela. But YouTube's the place, live streaming, video, shorts, everything for them most days of the week.
Excellent. Well, thank you. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you for joining us. It's been really lovely. I hope you'll come back.
I hope I'm invited back. Thank you so much for having me again today.
Yes, consider yourself invited.
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll have fewer technical problems as we launch here. So you can find this episode, all of our episodes, wherever you get your podcasts. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, because that's where we have our very active and vocal community. Can't wait to hear your comments and your theories on this case. It's easy to find us. We have one handle. It's My True Crime News. Pretty easy to find. Also subscribe to our newsletter at truecrimenews.com. So until next week, this is True Crime News, the podcast. I'm your host, Anna Garcia. Crime never stops, and neither do we.